What's up, folks? Frederick Murphy here, founder of History Before Us, and I am back with another episode. But, usually you all see me interviewing other folks, but this go around, it's just a solo mission. I'm on my way to Montevallo, Alabama. However, on my way to these different obligations that I have, I love to stop in small towns and gain some of its history. And I've done such today here in Anniston, Alabama, and I'm in downtown Anniston, Alabama. And there's a lot of civil rights history that's here. Oftentimes, when you talk about the state of Alabama, Montgomery as well as Birmingham get a lot of that attention. But there are some other towns as well that had some very, very positive civil rights movements and also some negative things that happened as well. As you see right here, the other bus, this is a mural that's here. And they had their own trailways freedom riders that were right here. And this is a list. This is my guy right here, Fred Shuttlesworth. He has a daughter that is actually still living, and she's in Cincinnati. But Fred Shuttlesworth was out of Birmingham. But this Trailways to Freedom Riders identifies some of the freedom riders that were here at this specific location in Anniston, Alabama. You see Frances Bergman, 57-year-old white female from Detroit. Walter Bergman, 61-year-old white male from Detroit. I reckon that they're either siblings or they're married. Then you have Herman Harris, 21-year-old from Sumter, South Carolina. You have Ivor Jerry Moore from Morris College, a 19-year-old black man from from the Bronx, New York. James Peck. You have Charles Person, Isaac Reynolds, 27-year-old black man from Detroit. A lot of folks from Detroit. He was a student also at Wayne State University. And so Fred Shuttlesworth says, when white men and black men are beaten up together, the day is coming when they will walk together. And when you talk about the civil rights history in the United States, it's not seen through a singular lens, or it should not be seen through a singular lens, because of the fact there were people from all different backgrounds that were working together to make those changes happen in this country. So it looks like the signage, it is very much so weathered, if you will, and needs a little bit of love, right? But let me see what street I'm on. I am on Noble Street. I don't know if you all can see that. And this leads into downtown Anniston, so I'll walk a little bit. But it's great to see that coming into the downtown area as a way to commemorate those individuals. So right here is a historical marker. I'll show you all this. Trailways bus attack, May 14th, 1961. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, race relations in the South were dominated by local Jim Crow laws. Although in the 1960 Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation violated the Interstate Commerce Act, local laws persisted. When a desegregated bus carrying black and white freedom riders arrived at the Trailways bus station, and we'll go over there, in Anniston, on this date, a group of young white men came aboard to enforce segregated seating. Whites in front, blacks in back. We all know that story. The men beat the Freedom Riders. It doesn't say Freedom Riders, but they beat the Freedom Riders, forcing them to segregate. After police intervened, the bus continued to Birmingham, with the badly injured Freedom Riders kept separated by their attackers. And so that's some of the local history that is here. So we're going to walk a little bit in downtown. This is the other side, and it says the exact same thing. And it says that this was the City of Anniston Historical Trails program in 2016 is when it was put up. And so you see some of these buildings that are here, they're not open. Some of them are. Like I always say, whenever you're in a downtown area, and we are in downtown Anniston, you got to have a good antique shop. And there's an antique shop right over there. Anniston Galleries is what it says. But you also see the signage that says antiques right there as well. So that's kind of a quintessential of downtown areas. And so we'll peruse and look around here a little bit. All right, so they have some signage on some of these historical buildings. This right here, circa 1953, has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places by the United States Department of the Interior. I'm not quite sure what it was to be placed on here, but right now it's a tuxedo rental place, as well as they have some other clothing items that are here as well. You got some bar that's here. Got to have one of those downtown. And yeah, it's Sunday, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people are at church. I'm on my way to a film screening in Montevallo, Alabama. There's another building with a placard that's on there that talks about it. Coming to the cross section of 10th Street and let me say Noble Street, where we were just at. The Commerce National Bank, organized in 1920, right here in downtown Anniston, Alabama. This is my second time in Anniston, but where I was at, it wasn't down here, it was somewhere else. So I'm going to have to find where I was at because it provided more information on the bus attacks. And if I'm not mistaken, it may have been part of the national park system. So I'm going to have to look and see if it's been affected by the shutdown, just like every other place has. So this right here was the site of the first lot sold to the public in Anniston, June the 20th, 1883, purchased by William H. Williams. So that's what that is. You have the drugstore right there, Rexall, furniture outlet rather. It's pretty neat downtown. I'm a sucker for small town USA. And so this is pretty cool. Okay, right here, 1014 Noble Street, circa 1888, has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places as well. So I have to research and see exactly what these buildings were prior to. Clearly they're old, the 1880s. It seems to be a theme as it relates to when these buildings were erected. And if anyone knows that's watching this, drop it in the chat. This one right here as well, 1900. Has been placed on the register. So in some places that I've visited, and this is another look at downtown Anniston, in some places that I visited, it also has the picture of the building historically and gives a description of what the building was during its heyday or what have you, or when it was erected. And so not necessarily finding that here. However, maybe there's a website or something like that that we're able to identify those. And then we have a Rexall Drugs, right? See these in a lot of small towns. There's one in Anson County, North Carolina, not too far from where I live. And again, 1888. This is when this was, it looks like this whole strip of road was constructed in 1888. So, yeah. I am going to head to another location. So I'm going to stop recording right now and jump back on here in a second so we can dive a little bit more into the civil rights history here in Anniston, Alabama. Peace. All right, I'm back. Found what I was looking for. It was one street over, so I was close. But this is another street here in Anniston, and it's one street over from the other one that we were at on Noble Street. And so there's a stark difference. But there is a historical marker that's here as well that identifies the Greyhound bus station protest in May of 14th, 1961. But this is the mural I wanted you all to see that pays homage and provides education during the time period. And so we'll go down here and check out a couple of these. This map shows just where the Freedom Rides, how far they extended. And in 1961, Congress of Racial Equity, which was called CORE, decided to test the 1960 Supreme Court ruling that outlawed segregation in depots, restaurants, and restrooms that served interstate passengers. And it goes all the way from DC down to New Orleans And so you have a land route, a planned route, an air route, overnight stays, arrests, and violence all throughout here. As you see, some of the major cities, Charlotte, where I live, Rock Hill, that's where John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, unfortunately, that's where blood was first drawn on his person. Winnsboro, Columbia, Athens, all throughout the South, right? And so CORE had organized these trips, one in 1947 that was called the Journey of Reconciliation. And they just kept going. They just did not stop. Here are some of these riders who are identified. Albert Bigelow, 55, white male from Connecticut. Genevieve Hughes, Jimmy McDonald, Ed Blankenheim, May Francis Moultrie, right there, Joseph Perkins, Hank Thomas. People were out of Kentucky, Florida, New York City, Washington, D.C. So this was very eclectic organizing, as well as individuals coming from multiple places across the country to participate in what needed to be done to gain equitable rights. Of course, you had the segregationists, which was the Klan. This is no secret. This is what they did. And it says right here, during a meeting of the Alabama Klan's board of directors in Tuscaloosa on May 13th, the plot to attack the outside agitators, quote unquote, from CORE was ratified. The plan called for the initial assault in Anniston, the riders first scheduled to stop in Alabama, followed by a mop-up action in Birmingham. And so it says right here that they arrived at 12:54, and they were right here. Did you see this bus? That is right here, folks. We are standing in ground zero. Standing at ground zero, rather. And it's sad because you see so much development on the other side, but perhaps this was the most historical, influential side of downtown that just isn't showing signs of life. But yeah, it's crazy. 12:54, like I mentioned, that's when they arrived, and the ambush occurred shortly after, from 12:54 to 1:10 p.m. It says the silence didn't last long. Anniston Klansman William Chappell, and a screaming mob of about 50 men surrounded the bus. An 18-year-old Klansman, Roger Couch, lay on the pavement in front of the bus to block any attempt to leave. So this guy was going to lay down, and that's him right there, in front of the bus to make sure that they didn't leave. Couch later told the FBI he suffered an epileptic fit. That's wild. That's wild. Yeah. So they chased him, as you see, the pursuit, 125 to 135. They trapped him, 135 to 155. And so that's just crazy. And of course, the terror began where they smoked out and bombed some of these buses. So that was the repercussion. The burning of the bus, live and direct. So that's crazy. Then they have the rescue and the escape, and some other triumphant things that happened right here 50 years later on May the 11th, 2011. 40 students who were retracing the route of the original Freedom Ride arrived in Anniston. So that's pretty amazing to see some of these folks coming back together and identifying something horrendous that happened here in this town. And here's a marker that identifies some of the same things in which we just saw over there. So it's pretty amazing. This is the monument with the building, and it is the Freedom Riders National Monument Greyhound Bus Depot. And this is what I thought. During this lapse in appropriations, national parks will remain accessible as possible. We are doing our best to take care of your parks at this time, but some amenities and services may not be available. and that does mean that some places just are not open. And in 1952, 1031 Gurney Avenue, this was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. So this is a very much so a monumental building that we have right here. I'm going to walk down, show you a little bit more of downtown, because there's another marker over here about a gentleman who was unfortunately lynched. And I will say this about downtown Anniston, is that they do have these unfortunate happenings identified in downtown, because you get a lot of individuals that come from this street down here that check out the Greyhound bus station, and they may have an affinity with some of these old buildings. As you see, here's another one right here that's empty. But they also need to get additional education as well as it relates to what has happened here in this town. And we're going to look at something else over here, two other historical markers that I remember seeing the last time I was here. So let's come over here and check that out. So there was a Human Relations Council that was created. The Anniston City Commission on May 16, 1963 established by resolution the Human Relations Council, consisting of 5 white men and 4 black men. The council's purpose was to make recommendations concerning human relations, and its members were to be without outside influence. United States President John F. Kennedy praised the council's formation as one that should serve as a model for other American cities. And so the members were Phillips Noble, and that street, one street over is Noble Street, Raleigh Byrd, Harold Edward Cosper, Wilfred Galbraith, Marcus Howes, Reverend William McLean, Grant Oden, Nimrod Reynolds, and Leonard Roberts. And so those are the folks that made up the council. So shout out to them. And again, I know that y'all are typically hearing me interview other individuals about historic sites and things they have going on, but I figured since I was coming through this historic town with a lot of things that happen in this town from a historical perspective that was centered on pushing peace and prosperity for all, I figured I would come down here and show you all this. And so right now, this discusses some of the beginnings of Anniston right here. And I'm learning just like you all are. So if there's a lack of continuity with my reading, it's because I am catching up on this stuff myself. So it looks like this is what the town was, or what it looked like. Noble Street has been here for a minute. So whoever that noble person was that was on the council is probably a descendant of people that have been in this town for a very, very long time. And then this discusses the development in 1917, as it says right there, and civic purpose. So this is the upfitting of buildings, the addition of some of the buildings as well here in Anniston. So there's one more thing I want to show you all before I get out of here, starting to sprinkle a little bit. The murder of Willie Brewster. And this hit national news. Willie Brewster became the target of white extremists after words spoken at a national states' rights party encouraged them to commit acts of violence against blacks. Unfortunate influence, and no one had the sense within themselves to say no. As Brewster drove home with co-workers from the night shift at Union Foundry, he was shot in the neck. Shot in the neck. Upon his death 3 days later, the Anniston Star published a full-page advertisement offering a $20,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of his killer. It was endorsed by 268 black and white Annistonians. So it looked like community really came together and wanted justice for Willie Brewster, that's pretty dope. Hubert Damon Strange was convicted for killing Brewster on December the 2nd, 1965. It was the first instance in Alabama history when a white jury penalized a white person for racial murder. Wow. And it says, We as a community are determined that those who advocate and commit secret acts of violence will not control this country. We are determined to fight with the weapons of law to retain the dignity of this community and punish those who struck down a respectable and industrious citizen. The Anniston Star, Sunday, July the 18th, 1965. So that is pretty dope to see where the community came together and did something that was very human. And so that's my time here in Anniston. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you're from here, I hope that some of these buildings that you see around here, let me pan it over here, spark some nostalgia. If you've been here before, there are a lot of old buildings here that can be repurposed for some great things. And, you know, if I had a boatload of money, I would do such in a lot of these different communities. But I'm still playing the lottery, y'all. So we'll see how that all works out. Again, if you like this type of content, I beg of you, please subscribe, share, and consider becoming a member because, you know, it takes money to come to these places and travel and bring this type of history to you that may otherwise be banned because of what's happening right now in the country. So, yep, peace and blessings.